Okay, good morning, everyone. Um, this is my personal YouTube channel that I haven't used in a long time, in a couple of years. So I'm gonna start using it again. And I wanted to start because last night I gave my very first art talk virtually through the museum that I work at, Perez Art Museum Miami. There's a video that I'll leave in the description, a link. It was a program called Local Views, and during the quarantine, Local Views has been looking at virtual um, programming for local artists like myself, my coworkers, other local artists of Miami to talk about their art. And instead of once a month, it's been happening once a week, every Thursday at 6, which is really cool. So I'll leave a link for that too, if you'd like to help support local artists. The reason I'm doing this particular video is because I had tech difficulties last night and I couldn't see my chat. So there are a lot of questions I missed and I feel really bad because I was surprised I had so much to say about my art. I don't often get in front of a camera, although I talk to myself a lot and I kind of interview myself as if I'm getting interviewed for my art. So I have a lot to say. I was just surprised how much came out and how much more I would have had to say. So I'm filming this now just to follow up with people's questions. And I know there were a lot of questions on YouTube. I can't seem to find them right now. So I'm going to start with Facebook questions that I did answer in text. So I'm going to just go through them and read them. And I also want to show off the rest of my PowerPoint because I didn't show my whole PowerPoint. I only got to show half of it because I was talking way too much because I was really nervous. So I'm going to share my screen here. Yes, I'm on Zoom. And I'm just doing this really quick before I go out for the day to do errands. So this is kind of where I left off on my video. You'll have to go see the video that I did last night so you can know exactly the background of what I'm talking about. But this is from, yes, February, March 2015. So from Marie Vickles, this is the director of education at my museum, and she's really supportive of all of us, all of our art practices. Dates and places seem to be an important part of your work. Do you see your work as a way of archiving or recording your life, a sort of visual memoir? And I wrote, yes, very much. I've done this since I got my first sketchbook. I'm sure my parents encouraged me to sign and add dates to everything. But for example, I remember logging down the date of my first portrait in 2008. I knew going from drawing cartoons to portraits was a big change, so I wanted to memorialize it. I have neighbors around me, so please forgive any of the random sounds. My long-term memory is not the best, to be honest. I think it's just the way my mind works. But collecting photos and dating journal entries and shopping lists and artworks not only brings the memories back to me much later, but it makes everything more precious as the years go on. And I'm very sentimental, and I have a hoarding habit I'm recovering from, which I do. I have a hoarding habit, and my husband is an uber minimalist, so it's really interesting trying to figure out where things go in the house and how to organize and how often we clean, because he's usually much more of a stickler about it than I am. So that's interesting. I've learned a lot from him though, and I am a lot better. I constantly am Marie Kondo cleaning my whole house, my closet, the closet where I store all my art supplies for my home studio, which I spoke about in my video last night. Really quick, this slide is from spring of 2015 when I was at FIU, and this is not really a main part of my practice, but these are just photos of different things I tried out at that time. This was the biggest drawing I've ever done. It was 6 feet tall, and it was mixed media. It was like wet and dry, graphite, charcoal, Conti. I collaged into it. There's scrapes and scratches and marks and fingerprints, and it's really fun because I used a paintbrush for part of it, and I also painted with my fingers. Finger painting is always really fun, no matter what age you are. And the photo on the left is of me trying a kind of interactive performance, but not exactly, I guess you could call it like relational art. So I was under a stairwell in the studio space at FIU. There's a little room storage space hidden under these stairs at FIU. And I got to talking with my husband about an interesting idea. And so whoever got this photo, I'm really grateful, but they didn't show the best part. I was brewing tea here on the floor. And as you see, I have a bunch of cups behind me. I was serving my whole class. And all these papers on the wall are prayers that I wrote in my prayer journal from, I think that one was from 2014, 2015. And I've been prayer journaling since I was in high school. I believe 2012 is probably the earliest that I began journaling in the sense of writing out prayers to God, because I found that writing them out helped me focus more, because I had a lot to say and pray about, but it was hard to just sit there and talk to myself and be like, dear God, this and this and that. So I found that journaling really, really helped me. And years later, I'm really starting to see how special it is to be able to look back on old prayers and see how much I've changed, and also see how much I haven't changed, which is very challenging in a good way. But I wanted to use tea as a motif for how prayers are always like recurring throughout the course of one's life. Like everyone struggles with different things that are unique to them that they're probably always going to struggle with. That's how I feel. And like anxiety could be an example. Like my husband, for example, struggles with anxiety. There's certain things I struggle with. Like, honestly, I think selfishness is one. So I was really, really codependent for a while, and I'm in recovery from that. I feel like I'm not as codependent if I'm not anymore. But that was a really big theme that I've seen when I look back through my prayer journals of the past. And I didn't even realize it at this point when this photo was taken, but I wanted to show with oolong tea, as I rebrewed the oolong over and over and over for each person, I had a burner that plugged into the wall and I just let it brew, and I had a French press. I served it for everyone. I kind of wanted everyone to have a piece of this recurring practice of prayer and communing with God. And I wanted them to also feel nourished and warmed and invigorated by it, because that's what it feels like, over and over be talking with God, kind of like a friend every day, or maybe not every day, every few days, whatever, whenever the need arises, whenever the desire arises to like bare my soul and pour my heart out. But nonetheless, like pray without ceasing is this verse that the Apostle Paul wrote to one of the churches in the New Testament. I can't remember right now, but a lot of people wonder, what is like praying without ceasing? Does that mean we have to like constantly pray, like every day or every hour? Like sit down and be like, dear God, da, 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 da. And I mean, you could if you want, but I think it really just means being aware of God's presence all the time, as often as you can be, and being aware of the fact that He's around you all the time. He's in you, He's with you, He's watching you. That's what mindfulness means to me, that God is always with me and inside me. And so whenever I take a moment to pause and acknowledge that and thank God, just a really quick like, thank you for everything, thank you for today, thank you for my life, thank you for this, thank you for that. That's a prayer too. That's prayer. Prayer is practicing the presence of God, because we don't always acknowledge it. it's more than just sitting down to write in my journal. Like, God's always with me. And you can just, I used to just think in my head and just kind of talk to myself, but also talk to God in my head, just as I walked around throughout the day doing what I needed to do. So that's about that. These are some prints, my very first prints that I started doing. Maybe you'll recognize this one from my first video. You know what, I'll go back really quick. Whoops, that's not going back. It's a crash course in my entire practice. So on the left, this bed image comes from a drawing that I did right here in 2012. This is a willow charcoal drawing and it's called Solitude. And this print next to it is my husband's the bathroom door from his studio apartment from when I met him and when I first moved in like 2017. So for my junior and senior year of college, I was working on prints and I first learned linocut, of course, and I learned etching. I've learned monotypes. I don't do those as often, but I really am fond of etchings, to be honest. So these are some of my favorites. And I'm gonna go back to the questions. Someone asked me, Alan Mueller, another coworker, he was like, do you prefer to work outside? As you can tell, I'm outside. This is my patio. Well, I'm not sure if you can tell right now. I'll show you at the end of the video. I said, I do. It's tough in the summer months, though. Here in Miami, it is really tough. I actually like to work later in the evening when it's not as hot. I have these big LED work lights that I'll hang from like the corner of the ceiling. Maybe I'll put them on the floor. Nah, I don't really do that. I put them from the ceiling so I get it shining down on me and there's no shadow. But there's nothing like the sunlight. It's true. It shows the most accurate colors when painting. It's everywhere, usually in Miami. It's here right now. It's beautiful. And I like sensing the weather changes and the shifting of the sun. And I like not being around clocks as much, where I can just set my phone on the other side of the table and work for as long as I want. Daylight really lifts my mood. And even though I'm a night owl type, I know that working during daylight is best for me, and it gives me a sense of structure, which is hard for me to manage on my own. That executive dysfunction is really, really tough. I don't think I have ADHD or anything. It's just sometimes very, very hard for me to motivate myself to do something and to complete a project or start it, or like any part of the process of completing. Like even in my sketchbook, I'm not sure if you can see it right now from here, but this sketchbook I've had for 2 years and it's only halfway full. And just now, this week, I was like, what happens if I gesso my pages? Oh, I can do gouache and watercolor and all this stuff, all these materials that I see other people using in beautiful ways in their sketchbooks, and they put them on Instagram. And I keep thinking, I have this like tone tan paper. Can I even do that? Turns out I can. And it was so simple. Like, why haven't I been doing that for a longer time? Whatever. Anyway, these photos are from more of my time at FIU. I love that I got a picture of myself rolling the ink on the block. I think that's really cool. Sometimes I would spend 5 or 6 hours in the print studio just printing away and trying out stuff on different types of paper, cleaning. I love things that are process oriented, like printmaking. Painting too is that way. I find collage to be pretty process based. At least I make it so. But that is me working on one of the first 2 prints that we saw back here. I think it was probably this one. But these two, oh, so this one's named Solitude. The one on the right is named Privacy. Those were the names I gave them. And then this one on the left is called My Stairway, because this is my stairway leading up to my apartment. And this one is called Helene's Door, because that is my landlord's side door. Anyway, you'll see a photo here of a bit of the process of how an etching is created. This was my reference photo that I forgot to flip on the computer before I drew it on the plexiglass. But I've got the plexiglass matrix that I've etched with a metal stylus, and then there's the final print. It's on, that's newsprint. And there's the stylus that I used. And then to clean it, you use cheesecloth to kind of clean most of it, but it doesn't get the ink out of those very fine, thin lines and cracks and etching that I did. So most of the ink is gone, but what's essential stays. And there's a photo of me down here with a series of 9 collages that was inspired by my husband's first LP that he put out. So each collage is based on a track, and there's lyrics of his in each of them. And that must have been, I must have brought them for an assignment, because I'm standing there posing and smiling, and that's the gallery wall at FIU. Super cute. And then this final picture of the repeated doors was an assignment. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I think it was do the same painting 5 times, something like that, or paint the same image 5 times. So I painted my husband's old front door to his studio, because we used to live in the studio apartment that's actually downstairs from where I am now. But now we've moved up to a bigger apartment that's right above it. So this is our old place, a little blue door. It's really iconic. I find those like really brightly colored doors very iconic. So this is the in progress picture of those paintings. I don't know where they went. I probably cut them up and put them in other collages. But I kind of wish I could do this again. And for me, the repetition motif, by the way, I think that has to do with mindfulness and process-based, just like meditation in the moment, meditation on an idea, an image, but also doing the same kind of hand motions. So I was talking in the video last night about how I'm always drawn back to these handmade, like very traditional seeming 2-dimensional mediums like drawing, painting, collage, printmaking. And by the way, this is a collage that I started in 2015 or 2016. I also put a print on top of it, so I'm trying to experiment with mixing the mediums. This is called Ching-Collé collage. And then this frame I added in 2020, well, a couple months ago. And I wanted to talk about how it takes me like 5 years to finish an artwork sometimes. Yes. And these are more door paintings. So on this slide, here's another question from Morel Doucet. He's a local artist. Sam, what's your dream project if materials and funding were not a problem? Well, that's right, I answered his in the video. So at the end of the video, I'm going to show an installation here that I did as my BFA final thesis, and I had an exhibit with it. And it's basically about the history of the word curate and the way that word has been used in different senses throughout time. It's a very ambitious idea. So my dream project would be to finish that installation. Next question here. What motivated you to go to Dash and kept you motivated to stay at Dash? So this was a really long response that I gave because I feel very strongly about this topic. I learned about Dash from one of the young men in the family of the house we lived in from 2005 to 2007. He was looking for a high school to go to, and one day he came home and he was raving to me about how much I liked the school It would be perfect for me. It's not a regular high school. There's no like popular kids. It's just everyone treats everyone the same and everyone's cool, etc. I was instantly obsessed, and I did cram to finish my portfolio in 8th grade, but I was accepted, and I was ecstatic, and I still have the acceptance letter somewhere. I could tell from the input of everyone in my life that I was in the middle of a very special opportunity. Not everyone's parents let them ride public transit alone for 4 years, so my parents letting me be me and commute to Dash on a Miami-Dade public transit. And if you live in Miami and you know about this, you'll know it's not great at all. So my parents, that was a huge blessing and affirmation for me that I was on my path, on the right track, you know? From the rigor of the audition alone for this high school, I always, I knew it would be a privilege to be educated there, and I always appreciated the sense of independence that Dash gave us. The expectations on us and the opportunities given to us showed me that this was a really important choice I had made, and it would be worth it in the long run. Putting it on my resume has gotten me places, yes, but I often am grateful to Dash just for the sense of independence it gave students, and the whole idea that life is what you make of it. It has shown me over and over through the years that no matter what amazing chances I take and the places I work and the things I'm asked to do, like local views, I must drive myself, find what keeps me going, motivate myself, and do what I can with what I'm given. So I apologize if my tech sensibilities are not really working out in my favor. I just hope the video comes out okay. I knew it was the best choice for me because of how it pushed me. Even when I whined and complained, I couldn't just quit, you know? I always knew deep down that it was wise and best for me to continue on, though I never thought about leaving. And I never did. I was like, this is my life, this is my school, my thing, I gotta do it. I think it was Father God guiding me all those years with the still small voice in my heart telling me to, you know, this is, you're here. You deserve this. You earn this acceptance to Dash. You can do it, keep going, you know. Yeah, it's a really tough, stressful, rigorous, it's a fun high school time. So Dash is a magnet school here in Miami-Dade County that focuses on design and architecture. And I studied film at Dash, which you would think, since I know how to produce films, that I would make a better YouTube video, but gotta buy all that equipment. And someone else left a comment saying the journey is part of the process. And that's very true. And I think that has to do with why I have always been so inconsistent with my art practice, because sometimes I'm making art and sometimes I'm just on the journey and stuff comes up in life and you got to be there for it. And I process it and I journal about it a lot, think about it a lot, keep it to myself, pray a lot about it. And eventually once I feel like I can make art out of it or it inspires me somehow, then I will make art. I also feel like making art out of an abundance within yourself is it's better for me than making art to fill that need. So I don't really make art when I'm not in a good place emotionally or mentally or distracted. Like when I'm not my best self, I'm not making art. So when I am, it's because I'm trying to access that higher self, the new man that I know I am in Christ. And usually making more art is a physical manifestation that my relationship with God is doing really well. So I make my best art out of abundance rather than like my husband is kind of the other way around when he experiences something really heartbreaking, that gives him heartache, and it makes him very sad, and maybe a betrayal, for example. Music is it is a go-to for cathartic release and processing all those emotions. But I'm not really like that. For me, that kind of catharticness is journaling. And so I have a big journaling practice. I have like 4 journals I'm running right now, and not all of them are prayer related. There's a tea journal I have, for example. But it's just interesting how artists work in different ways. Anyway, these are more door motifs. All these doors are my landlord's doors. As you can see, I've repeated some in collage. It's in progress, this little collage. By now I've finished it and I sold it, but at the time when that photo was taken, it wasn't done. So in the top left were these door paintings I began in 2015, which I finally finished in December of 2019 mainly because they were actually falling apart. So this is gouache on canvas pad, which means they're not primed. Like, I didn't prime the canvas pad. That might have been why the paint started flaking off. And I've had them in a float frame sitting in my living room on a shelf display for a couple years now. But I've been noticing that they were fading somehow, and like the paint was flecking off, especially on the blue door and the windows of the blue door. And my husband kept pushing me like, you should finish this and give it to our landlord as a gift, because she also commissioned me to paint her grandchildren's portraits back in the fall and the winter, which I have some videos of me in the studio working on those on my channel. If you want to give them a peek really quick, feel free. But I'm going to this week make them time-lapse videos because I have to find Blender and download it. Anyway, it's taken me a few years to finish even these tiny paintings. And these are some of the brushes I use, very small. I should get new brushes probably, because I need something that's like just 10 pieces of hair. Very, very fine detail. Here are some beautiful details of these paintings, lovely paintings. The doors actually look like this too out here. This is all from photos, so they're really this colorful, and we have all these beautiful plants in front. I'm looking for more questions. I know I have. Oh, I guess only one more. The best question. Whoop. Let me go through a couple slides really quick. These are my collages, and this is my process for working on them. I find it very much like painting. So a good collage takes some time to work on. I can't do them immediately. Like a lot of these on the left-hand side, I started in 2015, back from the first slide of the video, when I was trying this one collage a day for a year project. A lot of these are left over from that, so I've reworked them and added onto them or put them with bigger compositions. And that's what I was doing earlier this year. I was getting them ready for some zine fairs that I was expecting to do this year. And I also have a couple on my Etsy shop. I have some prints on my Etsy and some collages, not that many though, because I've changed a lot of them, so I have to take new photos. These, yes, there's me working on the patio, by the way, and then these are just in the floor of my house. So for exhibitions, I haven't had a lot of exhibitions recently. The closest thing I would count to that would be these zine fairs. So we've got, I was there in 2018 at the Miami Zine Fair. On the left, on the bottom, this is 2019. And then on the top right, this is Small Press Fair in Fort Lauderdale, which I really enjoyed. And I sold that charcoal drawing which I kind of regret because it was such a nice drawing. But I don't see the point in holding on to art. Like, the whole point is for me to sell it and give it away, even though I didn't sell it for a crazy amount at all, but it went to a good home. I know. I always talk to sellers before I sell stuff. And then the very bottom photo with my beautiful white wire things that I have behind me. This was my first time doing anything in Wynwood. This was local art club. This was in February, a couple months ago. I was invited to the one in March, but it actually I hope it got canceled because of the quarantine. So as you can see, my displays have evolved. I've been trying to get more eyes on my art at these fairs. I only make about $100 at each fair, honestly. And I didn't sell anything in Wynwood. So I'm trying to figure out how to get my work out there to actually be purchased by people, because I know my art is very easy to purchase. It can be, at least, and I am open to commissions. But I'm trying to get people to buy my work. These in-person fairs, I haven't been doing them for that long. They haven't really been working, though. We'll see. These are some up-close photos of collages that I began in 2015 and finally finished this year. These two, this maze drawing that this was an assignment from when I went to Miami-Dade College in 2015. This was, what was I gonna say? This is okay, the material is fine tip Sharpie. It was an assignment. I think it was just to create a maze. It's like a line drawing. So I did Girl the Pearl earring, but I cut it out and turned it into a collage. And this one's also from 2015. Excuse me. And this is some later work that I have done. As you can see, 2020, more recent. This is perfect. The last question I was asked from Facebook Live was, Angela, and she's my HR person, how is religion reflected in your art? Very good question. And I'm glad she asked. I hope she reads the comment that I left. But I'll put it here, and I think this is how I'll close. My faith in Christ isn't depicted explicitly in my work, but it is worth mentioning because being a disciple of Jesus is at the core of who I am. I was raised by Christian parents, and though I learned so much from them, there was a lot about God I had to discover for myself and believe for myself as I've come into my own growing up. The only stable thing throughout my nomadic childhood was my faith in God, learning about Jesus, studying the Bible more deeply as I got older. I remember my mom would often talk about how answers from God usually come in 3 categories: yes, no, and wait. It always felt like year after year, the message we got from God was wait. Though my prayer practice has blossomed greatly from these opaque seeming responses, sometimes it is just that simple. Wait, and be in the present. Give thanks for what you do have today. When I pray, it's like talking to a friend face to face, or my father, or my mother, albeit my heavenly Father. A lot of people assume that Christianity is just a religion, but at the heart of it, it's a relationship with God that is initiated by God's gift of grace to us. It's always been with us our whole lives. The relationship starts going somewhere when we accept grace and follow Jesus. Jesus is Savior, friend, shepherd, healer, a fellow human who mourns with those who mourn and rejoices with those who rejoice. And also God, who thought becoming a human and suffering our violence was worth it to show how much he loves us. When I was younger, there was more of a tension between finding my identity in the living spaces around me and finding it in who God tells me I am. The balance of temporal and spiritual identity. Some would see it as soul versus higher self, and that's not necessarily wrong. In recent work, I didn't get to show from the video last night that I'm showing right now. and I wanted to go back to this collage on the right. In recent work, I've used a lot of local church ephemera, i.e. Christ Fellowship, and especially from my husband's mom. I'm a part of a small family-oriented church in Westchester. It's called Cornerstone, Miami, but I don't consider myself part of any denomination. My mother-in-law is Pentecostal, and in her purse, she always has a bunch of tracts with illustrations on them, with very dramatic titles like, "Do you know your destiny?" or "Honor the blood," which I find kind of poetic when you take them out of context. So I've worked on collages using those papers and flyers and booklets, and my collages, I try to convey themes of consumerism in contemporary churches. With this particular collage, this was actually done for Febrilage Extended, and it was for week 2. Sorry, not the extended one. This was for actual Febrilage. I think the prompt was multiples. This was for Valentine's Day. And I had these multiple prayer cards with Saint Michael the Archangel, who prayed over like abortionists or abolitionists. I can't remember what the card said. I think he prayed for unborn babies. But I kept finding the same cards. They're like business card shaped. I kept finding them over and over. Someone would go every morning and tape them to the bench at the bus stop. I guess for people to take. I don't really know. It was like an advertisement for the church because it had a prayer with the angel on the back, and then it had the address for the church. It was like Church of Mother Mary of Jesus Christ or something. I'm not really sure. I don't go to those churches. But I found it so funny that the same thing was like taped over and over without fail. Every day I would go there and find these silly little like angel cards. So I've been collecting a bunch of them, and I have 4 different angel cards in this collage. This is actually a really big collage. I don't have it behind me shown, but it's about as big as the maze girl that I'll show you at the end. And then in the bottom where you can see my Marvel stickers, there's another black and white like curved wave looking thing. That's from another tract that said "Honor the blood." And then on the side, there's like a bookmark with this biblical timeline. And then the little floating planets. That was another tract. I can't remember the name of that booklet. These skulls are from a Holly Hunt flyer. So that's a local metal band. This is the Bob from Twin Peaks. That was from another band flyer. Can't remember why they used him. But and then there's another tract, "A Lost Soul on Judgment Morning." That was just 2 hymns. So I have a bunch of these like tracts that she'll give me, or I find them in her purse, or I used to find them in her house. I don't think she would mind if I took them. There's also a Frost Science Museum flyer here with the amphitheater. So I'm trying to this particular collage is kind of about the Armageddon whole apocalypse idea. So I've got these angels, this fleet of angels flying in to kill Bob and the skulls, and they've also got all the DC and Marvel comic heroes, and the whole world is watching here. And to me, all the gold kind of represents heaven, the presence of God. There's lightning here. There's a literal nebula, like a photo of a nebula. There's some just textured black paper to set the stage for this very large cosmic battle that I wanted to convey. And then there's this gem on top of like Satan's head, and it's to represent that he's the prince of the air here on earth. If you know biblical references, you'll get what I mean, but it's part of the book of Revelation. Anyway, this one is not exactly part of what I was describing in my answer to Angela, but I have a few more collages. You can see them on Instagram. My Instagram is samantha.in.eden. So with those, I've been working with themes of consumerism in contemporary churches, spiritual communities. They can't seem to get away from the trappings of marketing and advertisement, ironically. It makes it seem more religious and not as genuine. I've always felt this kind of church culture thing was disingenuine. That's just me. It doesn't affect my faith, but I have been wounded by past churches, and I don't know anyone without a wounding story from a church in their past. Don't know a single person who hasn't been hurt by a church somehow. It's really, really, really unfortunate. I've been hurt plenty of times. But yeah, it's stuff like that that makes church seem more religious and not like people are actually practicing what they preach. And it's sad because to me, I don't go around calling myself a Christian, but I am. Because people have certain connotations. If I were to just say I'm a Christian, but for me, I really, really, really try to focus on the relationship with God. And of course, I share that by the way I live. And I share it with you. I'm sharing it right now just by being myself. I share it whenever I talk to someone. I share it when I do what's true to me because, like I said, following Jesus and being a child of God is part of who I am at the core. So I can't help but share it. There's no secret to evangelism that I've learned. It's just you just show it with the way you live, and a lot of people miss that. So I try to make it very simple like that. Anyway, I'm going to try to wrap up soon, and I'll go over these last couple slides. So this is an example of what I've been doing here in quarantine. This also was an assemblage I started in 2015 at FIU, and I'm finally getting around to working on it. It's not finished yet. I have to stain the canvas and the background, so there's a lot more I want to do. And this is that final installation that I was mentioning, the amelioration of curation, how the word has changed over time. Is it for the better? Is it for worse? Because there's this interesting spiritual sense that I get from the word curate or cure, to care for, to give attention to take care of. And kind of reminds me of God watching over us, taking care of us. And it makes me think of what we're supposed to do for each other, care for each other, and watch over each other. I definitely would want to make this like Mark Dion Wunderkammer style and collect even more white gloves and more priest collars and what are they called? The cassocks from like Catholic priests or Anglican priests. Just the garb that people wear in religious ceremonies. That would be fun to collect and display. I've also got, let me go back to the first slide. This t-shirt with the word curator, I got that from the Wolfsonian FIU Museum on South Beach. And there's a few other snapshots. These are like screenshots I got of Tumblr blogs and Vaporwave music reviews. There's tea shops and then food bars that have the word curate in very, very different senses than this, a minister with pastoral responsibility. Or this is actually a 17th century book that was translating Roman words, or Latin words, excuse me, into English. And we've got curator, curate, curator, curo, an overseer, a guardian, diligently, exactly, carefully, care is taken, implied, to take care of. So this installation was me trying to find the common thread of meaning between all the uses of the word curate. And why did I choose curate? Because it's a very art world kind of word, and I kept hearing it all the time, and I was really curious what it actually meant and what curators actually did. And to this day, I still don't really know. I love how I used to like say, I want to be a curator, and I didn't even know what they do half the time. Like, what do they do? So I love taking photos of myself with my work. There's me in 2017, right before my BFA exhibition. Love taking photos. And on that note, this is the commission my landlord had asked me to do. These are paintings of her grandchildren in 4 different styles. We've got Warhol Warhol screen prints style. We've got Van Gogh, we have Monet and Botero. So, took me 2 or 3 months to do all of these together, but it was worth it at the end. They came out way better than I expected. But like I had high expectations for them, but once I began, I was like, this is extremely difficult. So once I was humbled in that way, the final product, seeing them is like way better than they practically could have turned out, because I hadn't painted since leaving FIU. So this is 2 years of not painting. Like I said, my practice is not very consistent, and I'm trying to get better with that. But this was some much needed painting practice I needed. And I had dyed my hair black last summer, so this was my black hair era. Love my little nerdy pins. So that is the rest of my PowerPoint. How long is this video? I don't know, but I don't have time to edit it. So I hope you really enjoyed hearing more about my art, and I wanted to give you an up-close look too. Some of these didn't make it into the PowerPoint, but they're on Instagram. Most of the stuff up here is stuff I've been doing for the quarantine. These prints are old, but they're my favorites. And then these are life-sized. There's some scale. These are life-size examples of some of those collages I showed in the video. And this is my whole crate. Anyway, this is my beautiful patio. For those who haven't had a chance to see just yet, I am surrounded by this like Hayao Miyazaki kind of foliage. It's like a jungle out here. Oh, the little lizards. I have lizard friends that live on my steps here. These are the steps from my print. And that one, I think his name is Blackie. I just saw tubs out here. I have a lot of Haitian curly tail lizards that show up. But anyway, look at how freaking gorgeous all of this is. It's so inspiring. It's probably like 90 degrees here in Miami right now. It's about 11 a.m. Yeah, 10:58. And I'm gonna sign off and upload this. Thank you so much for joining me on my patio, talking more about my art. It really means a lot to me. Your support and watching my videos and listening to me talk. It really means a lot. It's really, art's all about genuine human interaction to me. So I'm trying to really bridge the gap between us people and get out of my head and bring it to you. So I hope I was as articulate as I should have been and could have been. And I hope you really just enjoyed looking at my art. Check out my Instagram. I'll leave a link too for that. My Etsy shop. This is all on my main YouTube homepage too for my channel. I'm new at all of this stuff. Till next time, I'll try to get another video on here next week. So God bless you and have a wonderful weekend, everyone.